Alright, so we'll get started with Chapter 1, and I'll kind of tell you quickly the format for how we do these little summaries. So, we don't have more than 15 minutes to record, and they're usually not going to be that long. This is not a substitution for reading the chapters in this book. It's just kind of me giving you a little bit more of an overview that's not quite in here. So, between that, the PowerPoints, and the chapters that you read, you'll be in good shape. So we'll follow that format for all the chapters. So Chapter 1's Hospitality Spirit. The learning objectives, I go ahead and skip over those in this part because you'll go over those when you read and look at the PowerPoints. So the first thing we talk about is if you've never seen this pineapple before or haven't noticed it before, it is pretty common in a lot of hospitality establishments, and maybe now when you take a look you'll start kind of keeping your eye out for it. And it is that universal symbol of welcome, friendship, and hospitality. So there are many companies that have it in their logo or on their website or part of their design in general. So if you notice it again, you'll be able to see that. If you look at this chart about career paths, listen, it's not a straight line, and it's not necessarily going to follow this particular pattern, but you can kind of see different levels. Many of you are watching this and maybe working in the industry right now. Many of you may be considering it. So this is just kind of a very bare bones look at what it is. And I will tell you that we talk to students all the time. You can see this path straight from high school going up. We don't sit here and say, you have to do this or you have to do that. I mean, I will tell you that experience matters a lot, but there's just some possibilities there. So, about our industry, largest and fastest growing in the world. And what does the umbrella cover? Well, here it is. Anything and everything. And even within those separate parts of the umbrella, it goes beyond. But this is kind of a good starting point for you to look and see just what all is out there and areas that you could focus on. And as I said, within those areas, many other areas as well. So, one thing I will tell you is that, we used to have this term called banker's hours. And, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever you want to call it, this industry is not that. And I can tell you as someone who worked in the industry 20 plus years ago, I worked in it more recently, but as early as 20 years ago, the hours were backbreaking. And, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. It's not that anymore. It's gotten better because we were losing employees. But, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, those are busy times for our industry. So typically, not always, but there's a good chance you could be working those days. And that's something you need to know. We never close. Tons of shifts that are available, at all hours of the day, at all hours of the night, and it really just depends. It's very exciting, but it's something that you need to know going into it is that, it's just not a typical thing. I don't know what industries really are typical anymore, but we're definitely not one of them. A big part of what we do, which is good and bad, is an intangible part of service, right? You don't take it home with you, okay? And then we talk about perishable if it is a room, if it is a cabin on a cruise ship, if it is a person that walks through the turnstile of one of our theme parks. That's selling a product, and we can't sell a hotel room that we didn't sell on Thursday on Friday, right? Because Thursday's gone. So we're going to lose revenue there. If there's a couple of bottles of liquor sitting on the shelf behind our bar and nobody is drinking them, lost revenue, right? So again, that's an interesting aspect of it. Production and consumption occurring at the same time is also interesting as well. We talked about career industries, career options in the industry, and you can see those, and as I said, tons more. And then, just as an example, from a lodging management standpoint, you can see that there are some options that are kind of there. And so, again, does it, as I said before, does it follow this path exactly? Of course not. but that's just to give you an idea of some things that are there. When you see general manager at the top in lodging or anywhere else, here's what I'll tell you. The general manager should probably have taken all those steps and worked those steps at some point, in my mind, to be an effective leader. You have to know a little bit about all your departments in order to lead those departments. You don't have to be the best housekeeper, but you need to understand the core of what housekeeping does to effectively manage that department and the leaders in that department. Ethics to questions with situations, and in our business, in the customer service business, they come up a lot. So legal, balanced, and how do you feel about yourself after making that decision? We know now that a lot of our potential employees are looking at our values as an organization. And if those values don't match, then it may not be a good fit for them as an employee coming out. And listen, I encourage you, if that's something that you believe strongly in, to really research any company that you're going to work for in any industry, but especially in ours, right? What's right? What's wrong? What do we do in certain situations? So, I like this the right to steal, lie, drink, drive, blah, 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 right? So what does that mean? So a code of ethics was developed for our industry, and you can see the 11-point code. And again, this shouldn't be like earth-shattering stuff, but it's important, right? A lot of it should seem like common sense, but the fact that we have to make the list tells you that it's not. So it's important that you take a look at that and see. Focus on service, 100%, right? And we teach a guest service class, and we talk about this all the time. And just like employees, guests, it's much easier to have repeat business than it is to, for lack of a better word, annoy everybody and have to start from scratch every day, right? And that sharing their experiences, word of mouth, social media, all these different things, good and bad. And I'll tell you, usually it's really good or really bad, and it's not kind of, pretty good. It's usually going to be those furthest extremes. And I use this in guest service a lot, and think about this while you're listening to me. Have there ever been a situation where you got good or bad service that you went somewhere and told somebody? And I'm pretty sure everybody listening to this has done that in one way, shape, or form. The 7 deadly sins of service, you can look at those and you can see it's probably happened to you. I hope it's not something you've ever done, but you see those types of things happen. And, training is one thing, implementation is another. So it's like, how do we get this thing? Customers can be difficult, right? And the customer is always right is not something that I would say I agree with. But how you handle these situations that are thrown at you that sometimes aren't ideal. And this is where these 7 deadly sins come in. It's keeping your cool and making sure that, guest service is paramount. Again, this is pretty simple. Service culture, I can't stress enough that that's very, very important. We buy loyalty with service. That's true. I just mentioned that about how expensive it is. Moments of truth, you will hear a lot in a lot of different fields. And remember that interaction with an employee and a guest can be at these points where you expect it to be front desk, host stand, server coming up to the table, etc., etc. It could also be you walking from your room at the resort to the pool and passing someone who works in groundskeeping, okay, or a housekeeper as you go to your room. There's still moments of truth, and it's important that these things are handled properly. And you can see these very broad things here that make sense, where you say, okay, this happened well, this didn't happen well. These are chances for us to really excel. And quite frankly, we can really screw up. So we have to be very, very careful. Employee empowerment, and I will tell you until I'm blue in the face that empower your employees. Set limits, but empower your employees. Total quality management, you've probably heard best. And again, it is It is not having to run back every single time and ask if it's okay to do something. So that empowerment is something where we say, look, if it needs to be handled on the spot, handle it. Here are a few exceptions, but you have the power to make these decisions. Okay? And what we find by doing that is, again, they feel a sense of onus. They tend to be more engaged in their work, knowing that they have some power, for lack of a better term with this, to make some decisions on their own. And they are going to be decisions that benefit the organization. And then we can sit here and talk about Disney and separate classes about anything. I mean, everything they do. I'm not sitting here and telling you that it's the greatest thing in the world, but they do a lot of things very well. And, and look, there's some other things they probably could work on, but they're structured and they're organized. And so the smile, the eye contact, initiate guest contact, all these different things that are there that sound, again, pretty self-explanatory and pretty second nature. But they're not always done. Again, there wouldn't be a service model for them if everybody did them. And so it's that culture that they have set within that organization of here is the expectation when someone walks in one of our restaurants at Disney Springs, someone walks in one of our theme parks, whatever the case may be. The career is not always a straight line, 100%. Most of us will tell you that have had careers in this business that it wasn't a straight line. Set career goals. I encourage you to set career goals. And hard work, honesty, all these things. The work, the long hours, the hard work, being able to cope with stress, like I said, the interaction with guests is something that is, a lot of this stuff is, we can take you to a point and say, here's how we think you should handle these situations, but then it's going to be how you react to those situations as an individual that really matter. Set you up for success, give you the tools that you need, and then your implementation of those tools becomes critical. What a recruiter is looking for, all these different things. There may be tests that go along to test about your leadership abilities, maybe not, but look at things from a standpoint of, kind of briefly in this summary I've told you about the long hours and stuff. Like, what do you want to get out of this? What do you want to do? What are your goals in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? All these different things. So get involved with organizations, get involved. Stuff that looks good on your resume. Let's just be honest. Okay? And if you're not already working and for us you have to do some hours, get those hours in. Get those hours in something that you really want to do, because that may set you up for when you graduate. Or that may tell you something that when you graduate that you're really not interested in doing. And you're still in school, and that's great. You can change your mind about a career path within this industry. So, always experiment and look. We have a lot of people that say they want to do one thing, and in a lot of cases they've never done it. And then they do it and they love it. But there's also situations where they do it and it wasn't what they thought and they don't want to do it. That's okay. Let's find you another outlet of something that you may want to do. And so you see these trends here. They seem to change daily, but these are a couple that are there. So that's a brief overview of Chapter 1. As I said, moving forward, read the chapters, listen to the summaries, review the PowerPoints, and you'll be in very good shape for the exams.